Hello, I'm Dr. Micki Pistorius. Last week, we discussed the case of South Africa's Thabo Bester, who was allegedly aided by his girlfriend, Dr. Nandipha Magudumana, to pull off a daring prison escape in 2022 by smuggling a body into his cell in a privately owned prison. Now, for almost a year, Thabo and Nandipha lived the high life before the news agency Ground released their report on his escape and the faking of his death. So just to recap, the couple then fled to Tanzania and they were arrested and they were extradited in April 2023. They were split up and they saw each other again for the first time 4 months later in court in August 2023. So during that court appearance in August, they were dressed in designer outfits. They were clearly very much in love. Nandipha smiled coyly at Thabo and they could not keep their eyes off each other. Some people even said that they were spotted holding hands. The press commented on Dr. Nandipha's hairstyle and her nails and what they were wearing and Thabo's appearance. They were very much still the designer couple. The case was then postponed to the pre-trial conference in the High Court to the 5th of June 2024. This was now 3 weeks ago, and the event was streamed live by ENCA. This time, on the 5th of June, a very different drama played out in court. Dr. Nandipha, wearing a black Nike tracksuit, was seated in the front row of the dock, squeezed in tightly next to the other accused, the other defendants. Her hair was still stylish, but the effects of stress was clearly visible on her face. She bowed her head down as if she was praying. When Thabo Bester arrived a few minutes late, he was accompanied by at least 4 heavily armed guards with semi-automatic weapons. He caused a ruckus and was reprimanded by the judge when he wanted his handcuffs to be removed. Now, even with this disruption happening right behind her, Nandipha did not even turn her head to look at him. He sat down almost right behind her, right here, and his eyes frequently glided over to her, but she did not look at him. At the end of the legal proceedings, the judge awarded Thabo the chance to speak. He lodged several complaints about not having access to his confidential consultations with his legal team, who'd stepped down during the court appearance and he had to appoint a new legal team. And he said that the legal consultations happened telephonically and people could listen into this and there was no confidentiality. Now, many of his complaints were directed towards the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services. I am not a legal counsel and I am not involved in this case at all. But since it was an open court, as a forensic psychologist, I'd like to make a few observations. Thabo made some very unusual statements during his 15 minutes monologue. Thabo said, "I cannot divulge certain information as to the alleged escape. I do not believe it was an escape." And then he alluded to top officers of the Department of Correctional Services being involved in this escape. Now, can it be that Thabo believes himself to have been a free man when he exited the prison, leaving a burning cell with a body in it behind? And the camera footage of that night showed people in hoodies sneaking out of prison. Can he actually believe himself a free man that walked out of prison? Thabo is now being held in CMAX, no longer in a private prison. And this is South Africa's top security facility in the capital, Pretoria. He complained that he'd been segregated and for the past 15 months, he did not have access to nor have contact with any human being except the EST, which I presume is the guards, outside his prison cell. And those are the only people that he sees. He said this has an impact on his mental health and it is unfair. In a later video, I will discuss the effects of isolation in prison on people. Thabo then referred to a statement in the docket, and this statement was made by the chief investigating officer who has by now committed suicide. Now, that statement says that alleges that he, Thabo, had alluded that the former state president had orchestrated his escape. He said the charges involve so many high-profile people and that the minister and the National Commissioner of the Correctional Services have deprived him of every single privilege that exists. Now, prisoners kept in CMAX do not have that many privileges in any case. Thabo then mentioned he is only allowed 2-hour family visits for 30 minutes, which does not stroke with his complaint that the only people he sees are his prison guards, unless I'm mistaken. Am I missing something? Also, he complained that he has no confidentiality with the prison guards always being present, but since the prison guards have now been removed from outside his cell, he feels that his life is in danger. Again, this is contradictory, and unless I'm missing something. As a trained interrogator, I'm quite alert to contradictions in people's speeches. Then he complained that he was not freely brought to court on this court date of the 5th of June because he was cuffed. And he said this was unhuman. It's unhuman for a person to come into court to defend his life. Now, let us not forget that the ground-up report revealed that the body of Katlego Bereng, who had died due to blunt force trauma to his head, was smuggled into Thabo's prison cell and burned to imitate Thabo's death and facilitate his escape. Yet he claims that his being cuffed in court was inhumane. Thabo's handcuffs were removed in court, but his feet remained shackled, which is not unusual for convicts who had previously escaped. So Thabo, wearing a white shirt and a black jersey and a brown jacket, with a designer shave, complained that he was being forced to dress as such. These clothes were bought for a purpose to come to court. I had to spend money to look like this. I have clothes in my bags that are whatever branded. I'm not allowed to wear clothes that cost a certain amount. I was told I can't wear clothes that are Louis Vuitton because it gives the wrong impression. I'm now forced to follow laws based on impression. It is unfair. Thabo complained that the media has tarnished him and destroyed him with no facts. He said, "No evidence has been brought in my side. It is already confirmed that Thabo Bester is a rapist and a murderer, but there is no evidence. I am self-convicted. I pleaded guilty to the most crucial or most dangerous unit called Thomena Killer Squad," I've never heard of them anyway, "who forced me to plead guilty. The case has been pending for 13 years. Transcriptions has been missing for 13 years. It goes around in South Africa as a proven fact beyond reasonable doubt that Thabo Bester is a murderer and a rapist." Now, as a trained interrogator, what interests me here is the lack of the personal pronoun I. He refers to himself in the third person, singular, as Thabo Bester, not I. Serial killer Ted Bundy also confessed in the third person singular. Avoiding the first personal pronoun I in a sentence indicates a lack of accountability. Person is deceptive. Now, legal counsel has informed me if a person pleads guilty in a court of law to murder and rape and is sentenced, then the press and the media have the right to call him a rapist and a murderer. So Thabo brings it to the court's attention that he only has 3 charges against him, which is technically not true, but which means he's not the worst inmate in the country, yet he is the most popular inmate in the country. Popular is an unfortunate choice of description, for in my mind, it points to narcissism. I'm not diagnosing him, I'm just saying his statement sounds awfully narcissistic. Is he boasting that the Department of Correctional Services are applying laws designed only for him as the most popular prisoner? He continued saying, "I've been out in South Africa living my life for a year. I have not violated any human, but I'm treated with the utmost even in the legal fraternity." Now, Thabo Bester, who's just referred to Thabo Bester pleading guilty to being a rapist and a murderer, is saying he's not violated any human. Am I missing something? Thabo then made his third and last point, whereupon the judge reminded him that he's made many last points, and at this time the whole court burst out laughing, including Thabo. Now, Thabo, for a man pleading for his life, to me it seemed a bit callous that he burst out laughing, and the only one who was not laughing was Nandipha. Throughout this whole tirade, she did not look at him once. Her facial expression showed visible emotional distress. Nandipha looked as if it took all her will and her willpower not to cry out aloud in court. And then Thabo did something very unusual. Magnanimously, he asked for the citizens of South Africa to sign a petition that he be given the death sentence. Since he's co-accused, all of the people in front of him and next to him were innocent. He said, "I say this as a broken man." Now, this is the broken man that is so upset that he's not wearing designer clothing in court. In any case, as a broken man, I say this wholeheartedly, and it tears me apart to see these people in court, knowing well that they are suffering for something they know nothing about. If such a petition is signed by the citizens of South Africa, Thabo says he will immediately agree to it and it will put an end to this matter. Now, for the record, no person that has ever been given the death sentence were asked if they agreed to it or not. Thabo, like every other citizen in South Africa, knows that the death sentence was abolished on the 6th of June 1995, 29 years almost to the exact day of the court date of 5th of June. His offer to exchange his life for his innocent co-accused is grandstanding to the extreme. Yet it touched, visibly distraught Nandipha. Finally and lastly, Thabo, the man who is willing to sacrifice his life, complained that his feet are very cold and he cannot feel them. "I can be put to rest. I am at peace. I know what I've done and what I've not done. I'm not perfect. But one thing I know for a fact, that none of these things would exist if there was not a political backhand of watchdogs that controls the situation. I am humbly sorry for the outburst. It is a lot for me to take. It is too much and it is unfair." Whereupon the judge asked him, "Are you finished?" And the judge then reminded Thabo to appoint legal counsel to address his complaints and to lodge a complaint to Judge Cameron, who investigates prison complaints. He said that the state has a prima facie case against the co-accused and that the death sentence has been declared unconstitutional and that his plea for a petition is therefore irrelevant. The case was then postponed to the 24th of July 2024. Thabo, Nandipha, and one of the other accused remain in custody. If you like this video, give us your thumbs up, and if you are interested in hybristophilia, the phenomenon of women falling in love with criminals, and whether Dr. Nandipha fits this profile or not, then please join my Patreon community on the Patreon platform, Micki Pistorius. I will see you next week on YouTube, where I discuss ostracism and the role that it can play in spree killing and serial killers. Thank you for watching.